It's 1 minute after 3. We've given you lots of special extra time to relax, get caught up. Of course, we can't get Bob to stop talking. Pardon? It's on.
Just drop the set out of your ring.
It's on.
Is it on?
I'm on.
You can do the Boy Scout thing.
Obvious. Oh, yeah. That'll work. That'll work. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
We are now in session. No, I've got to find my copy. Here we go. We do have a quorum, and I'll start with introductions. And I'm Jim Moore, recently elected, rashly, I would point out, as the chair. So we'll see how things go today.
Michelle Day, citizen at large. Courtney Stone, citizen at large. Jen Allen girl, pass the
Yes.
What'd you say? Please do. Yes.
Okay, thanks, Welling Clark, Council of Neighbors and Organizations. Sorry I'm late. When you walk out the door and your boss and his boss say, "There he is," it's not a good deal.
No, it's not. No, I understand that.
Great. Welcome.
Julie Ott, League of Women Voters.
Al Moffat, El Paso County.
Bob Baker, El Paso County.
Ellen Hossey, Tulare County.
Fran Pitaro, Colorado Springs.
Vince Russenack, citizen at large.
Kevin Walker, the same.
Aubrey Day, citizen at large.
And in the audience right now, if you'll just identify yourself and who you're with.
Matt Jago with CDOT, Region 2.
Thank you.
Neil Shearer, interested citizen.
Thank you. And we'll hear more from you shortly, I'm sure. And we have our erstwhile staff, and we will be hearing from them. Bethany, who is now trying to keep me under control, and Kevin. Okay. And Tamara's walking in. All right. Public comments? Anything about that is not already on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move forward to the consent items. We've added a couple of things to the consent agenda. Procedure with the consent agenda, if for some reason, if you've looked over material that was in the packet, that is part of the consent agenda, if you want to call something out for further discussion, this would be the time to do that. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda. Fran Pitaro.
Second.
It's been moved
Kevin
and
Walker.
seconded. Any comments? Questions? All in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right, we'll move right into action items, and as Mr. Goluski is coming up to talk to us about a new one, a different lift station, I would like to thank him for acknowledging the comments before the board. You made some very nice comments about what members of this committee contributed to your evaluation of the issues, so we thank you very much for that.
Thank you, my pleasure indeed. Peter Gillespie, PPACG Environmental Program Manager. Today we have another lift station at Fort Carson. Fort Carson is expanding in terms of troops and therefore facilities. It's a very simple project. They're, as with the one last month, they're upgrading an existing wastewater lift station to serve another building. They're basically doubling the capacity from 100 and some gallons per minute to 200 and some gallons per minute. It's no big deal in terms of the total capacity of the downstream receiving plant. Their wastewater treatment plant is rated. This very good question was asked last month, and so this is in response to that. The Fort Carson wastewater treatment plant is rated and permitted at 4 million gallons per day. They're presently using 1.5 million gallons per day. We're talking about adding another 125 gallons per day. No worries at all. Let's see. What's interesting about this project, unlike last month's, this lift station does have emergency power backup, which is a good thing, less likely for anything to go down. They do have monitoring, and that's connected to an alarm that's very loud, and a SCADA system, a computer system. So if something happens and the levels start to rise to concern, not only does an alarm go off, but it sends out pagers and all kinds of stuff like that and gets people's attention. They have 4 hours of backup storage. Normally that's not very much. So let's say in a residential community, I would balk at that. I would want days of storage, not hours. But in this case, Fort Carson they have 3 vac trucks on site. They have contractors on call 24/7 every day of the year. And they will respond by contract within an hour. They can take care of it within 2 hours. Let's see. On another good note, in the upgrade, they're going from manual float sensors to pressure transducers, so things like things that would get stuck in a float, whatever that is, plastic bags or whatever, that doesn't affect transducers. That's a good thing. So in the upgrade, they're upgrading capacity. They're also improving the operational function of the system. Let's see. The project was reviewed and approved by the Lower Fountain Water Management Association and signed off by Roy Heald. Many of you probably know him. This morning, the Site Application Review Committee, which is a technical subcommittee of PPACG's Water Quality Management Committee, we met and discussed this project, went over these issues. It was a small group. There were 3 members, myself, 2 presenters, Bethany, of course. I know I'm forgetting somebody. But we looked at this and said, this all sounds good. Normally, we would take this project from the Site Application Review Committee to the Water Quality Management Committee before coming to you. However, this month, because of the way the days fell, that didn't work out, and I really didn't want to delay this project by another month. So the Water Quality Management Committee is going to review it next week. So this is an opportunity for you to consider really ahead of them. I can't speak for them, of course, but I fully anticipate, particularly since the members of the SARC are also on the Water Quality Management Committee, that they're going to, bless you, they're going to approve it. I can't guarantee that, but I believe that they will. They might have an item of concern or two, and if so, we will forward those, we'll present those verbally to the engineer at the time and also write them up, give them an opportunity to respond. I'm sure they will. Lastly, just as a quick overview, Bethany, I'm watching my time. I'm within time. It's bad if you go over time. We won't go there. Anyway, lost my train of thought. Just so, especially for the newcomers, the way this works, wastewater treatment facilities, the body that has true and ultimate approval authority is not us. It's the CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. We are an advisory planning body, and so they take our recommendations, concerns, and so forth into due consideration. I just met with Brett Eisenogel, who oversees such projects and who ultimately approves them or not. And anyway, that's our role. We're a planning and advisory role. So when we say PPACG, and it's ultimately the board that approves or doesn't approve or approves with recommendations, They will approve then, or make, or whatever action they take as an advisory body to the state who has ultimate approval authority, just FYI. So,
Questions, comments?
How
Al?
far from the main wastewater treatment plant is this lift station? You
I don't know.
Peter?
I don't know. It's a lift station, it's going up, I know it's going uphill, I think a couple hundred feet, and then flows by gravity some distance. I don't know the distance off the top of my head.
Because, first of all, I'd like to say that I very much appreciate, the comments that you've had about the size of the storage system for in the event of loss of power, function, et cetera, that our comments last meeting were taken positively.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. At the same time, this will be the second one that now has what might be considered a right-on-the-edge size storage system in the
Yes.
event. This is the second lift station. How many lift stations do they envision? Do you know?
I know there's another one coming up next month, and I don't know off the top of my head how many they have on the facility,
Okay.
on the whole facility.
Okay. The only reason I ask those questions is if there's a major power outage, if there's an EMP or a stroke of lightning or something, and you've got 3 or 4 of these lift stations now needing immediate service,
Right.
is there enough capacity? Obviously, there's enough for one.
I think they have enough for 3. I understand they have 3 vac trucks always on the facility. And this particular facility actually has its own diesel-powered emergency backup. They don't all do that.
I
Last
noted
month's
that.
didn't.
That was very good. That was very good.
We recommend that. In a residential setting, I wouldn't like 4 hours of storage. I would like more like 4 days,
Well, and that's, I guess, my experience would say that there's a reaction time, and then you've got to fix it.
Yeah.
These are modern facilities, so they're pretty automated. You generally know what's going on. But one of my questions would be the distance from the main source of manpower. If you've got 5 or 6 of these lift stations and they're 45-minute reaction time, kind of hard to imagine, pretty soon you've got just issues for getting them covered.
My understanding is from the time the alarm goes off to the time the vac truck there is within 2 hours, probably less than 1, but within 2 hours.
Thank you very much.
And the worst case is they have a very high-tech method. One of 2 things. If everything went down, they say, well, you don't work in these buildings today. Or something even more high-tech, porta potties, which they have the capacity to deliver.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it appropriate to approve this contingent upon the outcome of the water quality management?
Sure. You can add a
It
comment.
just seems prudent.
Yes. That could be, we
I'm not
approve,
concerned about it, but if the water quality management committee had some
I like that.
concerns about it, then it would be silly for us to.
As staff, I like that. If someone were to make a motion, we approve, we recommend this for approval, subject to the approval of Water Quality Management Committee. That would be
I
great.
move what he said.
All right, you all fight this out. Who's getting the motion and who's
Okay, you can
seconding?
have it. I'll second.
Jen's got the motion and Michelle's got the second on it. Ray, did you have something?
No.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. Oops.
I'm sorry. One of my concerns last meeting was that one would set a precedent. Are all the lift stations now going to have 4 hours storage time in an emergency?
They may. I say that in a droll tone of voice. They may. They have the capacity to deal with it. Again, if these are residential or commercial facilities, even though I'm staff, I'd squawk. I wouldn't like that. At a military base with the capabilities they have, doesn't bother me at all.
And that was my concern. We were setting a precedent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Good question.
All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much, Pete.
One comment. I'm only 1 minute over, Bethany. Wastewater lift stations are not all that I do, and well, I'm going to be coming and darkening the door here every quarter and just giving a brief. Yes. I'm making fun of Bethany. Very brief updates on the range of things that I do, and that'll begin next month. So thank you for your time. This is I go to lots of meetings, as many of you do, and this is I'm not just saying this is my funnest group. Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Wow.
We still voted yes. You
Yes,
didn't-
we still did.
We already approved it.
Okay, thank you, Pete. All right, while Kevin is coming up, I neglected to bring you all up to date in case you may have missed it, but Craig Casper was relieved of his responsibilities as Transportation Director earlier this month, and Ken Prather is functioning as the active Transportation Director. And there is an active search, I understand, for an executive director for PPACG. That is not anything that we are involved in, but it's something that I think we're interested in, so we'll keep you up to date on that. Also, before I let Kevin get started, if you have a cell phone, we've discovered that cell phones sitting on the tabletop, if you get a text or you get a silent alarm or you get something that sends a signal, it interrupts these things. So that's where, when we've been having static on the PA system, that's where it's coming from. So I would ask you to not, thank you, Fran, to not put your cell phones on the tabletop. If you can keep them in a pocket or something like that, that would be helpful. All right, that takes care of my earlier administrative duties that I neglected to cover. Okay, tip amendment number 7.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kevin Reyes, Transportation Planner here with PPACG. Today I'm going to be going over the 2017-2022 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment number 7. Amendment number 7 is coming to us from CDOT. During their Region 2 TPR meeting, they selected 6 additional projects to add into the TIP. So this entire amendment is just CDOT adding projects into the TIP. And if you look in attachment number 2 of your packet, there's a spreadsheet there that lists which projects they're adding. And I want to apologize for the lack of information in this thing that I provided. I was able to follow up with CDOT over the past couple days, and I have a lot more information on these projects now to provide you. So hopefully I can answer some of your questions, because several of you emailed me with questions on these projects, so I want to make sure we actually tell you what they are. So the first project is the US 24 bridge repair. I don't even know what yours says. I think it just, I don't think it says too much, but what they're going to be doing is they're going to be repairing the rail along that bridge. And one of the numbers in the chart that I gave you is incorrect. So I think I said it's going to be, in 2020, it's going to have a total of $6 million. It's actually $6,000. So the decimal point was a little off. My formula was incorrect in the spreadsheet. So this is a pretty small project, but I will show you exactly where this is. So the project is at the bridge I-17-AE. So that's just a formula that CDOT uses. So it is, one second here.
Before you go any further, are we supposed to understand that the dot on these is supposed to be a comma, which is the way I was reading it, so your correction actually says that what's here is right?
So the dot is, so all the numbers that I put in the spreadsheet for the tip are in thousands. So what you guys have is 5297, so that's actually $5,297,000.
Okay.
So it should say 5.297, which should be $5,000.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So just put
All right.
period.
We're actually getting a highway project done for $6,000.
My understanding is it's only repairing the rail of the project.
Well done.
2 screws, 1 spoke is bent. Yeah.
Let's see here.
Okay.
Wow. By a state
So-
agency.
Let me see if I can get this here.
That goes back. Bethany's coming over.
So that bridge is just right down here along along the 24 here.
Okay.
And if you're interested, I can show you the actual bridge, but I'll continue to move on here.
For $6,000, let's move on.
Okay.
Pass this around.
Oh, yeah, I've seen this.
Oh, thank you. The second project is the State Highway 85 and I-25 bridge repair. And they're actually going to be doing some scour repair at this structure as well as fixing the gutters. So scour repair means that this bridge has experienced a lot of erosion underneath, so they're going to be fixing that. And then a lot of the gutters along the bridge are crumbling, so they're fixing those as well. And again, all the rest of the numbers in your spreadsheet are correct. So, yeah. You have a question?
I do. That particular bridge has been the subject of a lot of discussion at Highway Advisory and at several other spaces. It's been scoured and repaired, I think, twice. I live very close to that, so I see that bridge on a pretty regular basis. And if I remember right, the last time it was repaired, Fountain Creek, that's going to be fun. The last time it was repaired, we tried to reinforce the center span of that bridge because it had been totally undercut and was hanging, and installed riprap and tried to coffer dam it, put in more concrete, and then that's washed out also. We spent about $1 million on it last time. And it was identified at Highway Advisory Commission as one of the top 10 bridges that were of a critical needs. $500,000 is a lot of money, but are we just, once again, patching this because it's involved in a larger PPA project to be totally replaced, or is this going to be the repair that hopefully, or that is intended to suffice for the next decade?
And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. Mark has that.
Hi. Mark Andrew with CDOT, North Program Engineer. I don't have the complete history on this bridge. This is the Fountain Creek 24 bridge that you're looking at. Yeah, we did, and I'm not sure if it's this project, but we did a repair with a new deck on one of these bridges, and it may have been only one direction. So it may have been, I'm thinking it was the westbound, maybe not the eastbound. I may have those backwards. But maybe the doghouse rail that you see here wasn't in the condition it was. That was about
Years ago.
No, the project I'm thinking of was about 10 years ago.
It's wild.
So, and then we did some scour repair because we had an exposed water line, the big water line that runs through there. So I think we did some repair then. We did some repair adjacent to the bridge with some riprap because we had some scour around the wing walls of the bridge. So I don't know if obviously we didn't get into the bridge rail repair, but this bridge may have not been identified with that original bridge that we did 10 years ago. So I think there's two here. There's one direction and one the other. So, but I'll find out some more about what we've done. I think maintenance is just fixing this. And then the one on 85 and I-25, we've got the curb falling off that bridge. In fact, it fell. We had some curb fall off. It didn't fall in traffic, but it fell in the median. So we're gonna fix that one too. But these are two critical repairs. Just to give everybody an update, we do get a critical repair list quite often, and when these get flagged, we just need to get funding to maintenance or into a project to get these fixed. So.
When we have
Like trying to run underneath. They're going that way. They've been around already.
engineers, that's probably not the correct title, but were both of these rated F when that last was done?
The infrastructure report card that ASCE did.
I'm not aware of the rating on these bridges. I can tell you what our rating is. Tamara, I don't know if, I'm not familiar with that.
For structures, we got a D- for structures.
D minus?
Yeah.
I mean broadly, or are you saying these two bridges?
Well, no, we took into account all the structures that are in the area.
So that would be even off-system bridges too, culverts, things like that. So we do have several bridges right now that are getting fairly low. They're not below our 50 level. If anything drops below 50, it becomes structurally deficient. Doesn't mean it's going to fall down, but it means that we need to do a rehab on it fairly quickly. So most of these repairs, even though they don't look like they're cosmetic, are not necessarily a structure repair. They're more of a curb and gutter or rail. So these things need to be fixed. So they wouldn't fall into that structurally deficient category. So again, these are more maintenance needs right now. But I can find out the sufficiency rating on this bridge. It's probably not going to show up.
You know, it piqued my interest on Fillmore, now that the diverging diamond is done, and Fillmore traffic has probably actually increased, whether that bridge that had the feet that were moving at the bottom, and I know there's been a lot of attention paid to that. I guess that's City of Colorado Springs, right?
Yeah, you're talking to the bridge that's the steel structure that's over Fountain Creek.
Yes.
It's got the tilted rocker on it.
Yes.
Right, and so it looks like it's a scary thing, like the bridge is going to shift and it's going to fall. But it's actually not, it's not moving. And so our structures folks look at it every 2 years, and their comment is, we're not concerned about it. However, it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be fixed. But you're right, that's a City of Colorado Springs bridge, but we do inspect all bridges for the city and county as part of an inspection program.
Okay. Kevin, you want to move? Oh, I'm sorry, Jen.
Are these dollars pulled back to fix these things from future years then?
Well, the way it works is we've got our asset management program that we put money into our bridge preventative maintenance program. And right now we have about $12.4 million available to go to several projects right now. And this is one of them. And that's for our region. So that's not statewide. And I don't recall exactly what we have left statewide. But that's our fiscal year 17 through 20 program. So we can utilize any of that funding through 2020. That's our fiscal year. So it comes out of our Bridge Preventive Asset Management Program. And so, again, we've got a pretty comprehensive plan that looks at all the structures, looks at the needs, and develops that plan and then attaches the funding to it. Right now, I think we're still short on funding overall for bridge preventative maintenance, but we're taking care of the critical needs first. So.
Okay. All right.
Just
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Just a general question. With the change in administrations and a lot of discussion and talk coming out of Washington about the necessary infrastructure improvements, is CDOT and related entities currently putting together a list of projects that can be considered shovel-ready in case something like Tiger Funds or whatever the flavor of the administration comes up so we can get a handle on some of this?
Yes. I mean, we have our 10-year capital list. We've talked about that before. And those are not designated to be shovel-ready in the sense of 0 to 6 months, but they're 0 to 2 years. Some could be ready sooner. But we have in Pikes Peak and our Central Front Range, I'm thinking we have around $200 million worth of projects is identified. We have about $360 million in all of Region 2, and it's about $2.5 million statewide. So those projects would be our first priority if we got an infrastructure bill or any other type of revenue. Just to let you know, the I-25 GAP project is Region 1's priority on that list, too. It's their Tier 1 priority. So that one's on the list.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, Kevin?
Okay. So the third project on your list is the Ute Pass pedestrian project. And what that is they basically are going to be continuing a segment along the Ring the Peak Trail project. I don't know which segment they're doing, but that's basically what that project is. The fourth project on there is the US 24 west of Manitou, West Chippewa Park. So they're going to be doing a minor mill and overlay along this segment. And this segment is basically a 5-mile segment just west of Manitou Springs, more or less along here, until it gets to Chippewa Park there. So that's just kind of a minor rehab there. The fifth project on your list is the I-25 South Academy project, which is they're going to be doing work on northbound only. And for this project, again, this is actually going to be a major rehab project. They're going to be redoing the entire road. From my understanding, they're all the way down to the concrete. And so this is about an 8-mile long segment along there. And then the sixth project on your list is the I-25 corridor management design. And for this project, they are basically working on the design phase for I-25 right around Fountain and Circle. Is that correct?
Goes from South Academy to Circle.
South Academy to Circle. They're going to be designing that to get it ready to go from 4 to 6 lanes. So that's everything on the list. I think, does that cover it? Okay.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Any questions for Kevin? Tamara?
On the Manitou project and the Academy and stuff, the decimals off on those as well, or are they in charge 5.8 for the known overlay?
For what? I'm sorry. Which project?
So the Yosemite one. Am I reading that right? $5.8 million?
Yeah, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
That's $5,800,000.
About $1 million a mile. Maybe a little more. Okay, any other questions or comments? Motion to move this forward with a recommendation to the board?
Motion.
Okay. Been moved and seconded that we move this forward with a recommendation that the board approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Legislative update.
Figure I could squeeze it out right. I'm sorry, point of clarity.
Yes, ma'am.
I think Ted did a fine job. It is believed that Chipetta, the wife of Chief Ure, pronounced it something very much like Chipetta when you read contemporaneous documents from people who had met her. But in the Historical Society of the past, we say Chipeta, as the families who live in the area of Chipeta Park pronounce it. And we encourage everyone to practice this just as much as they practice pronouncing Puebla. Thank you.
Yeah.
Buena Vista.
I'm trying to decide now whether we want that in the minutes.
He did well.
Yes, he did. He did very well. We'll forgive him on the Chipeta, whatever. All right.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jessica McMullen, your special and lovely Policy and Communications Manager. So, yeah, special. In your packet, it tells you the real quick, here is the current process for what we've been doing with legislative session. At the Board of Directors meeting last month, earlier this month, they approved the revitalization of the Legislative Subcommittee of the Board. This group is going to be reviewing the legislation and submitting it to the Executive Committee. That way we can be keeping up with the speed of the legislative session. All bills are also being sent to the TAC and the CAC. You all should have gotten an email from me that said, this is our current bill list. Please give me impact. None of you gave me opinions. A couple of you gave me questions, but nobody gave me feedback. So I'm just yelling at all of you individually right now, staring at you. At the February 8th meeting, aren't I subtle? The board approved 1054, the community military cooperation, and we made sure to really appreciate the Chamber and EDC for all of their work in getting that bill to happen. So Rachel, if you'll please let Andy know that that's ridiculously well appreciated, that all his work on that. 1018, which is extending the voter approval window for the RTA. I will bring up, there was some strong conversation about that, with some confusion about whether or not that related to the Fountain and Pikes Peak RTA lawsuit. It did not at all. It's nothing to do with it. Hearings on Transportation Commission districts, study transportation access disabilities, the Southwest Chief and Front Range Passenger Rail Commission, and the Office of Public Guardianship Pilot Program.
Bless you.
Bless you.
It was.
So, you should have seen in that email from me that there were a whole lot of new bills added in. So that list from me had House Bill 1107, 1139, 1153, 1161, 1166, 1171, 1177, and Senate Bills 40, 42, 47, and 176. The Legislative Committee met on these bills last Friday. They will begin their regular meetings on Monday next week, and they will be meeting every Monday at 4 o'clock. That is obviously a public and open meeting, so if you're interested, come. or call in, and I can give you that information. It's online. They chose to take no stand on all of the bills except for House Bill 1153, which they are suggesting support for. This bill is the highway congestion mitigation by Representatives Dave Williams, McKean, and Senator Gardner. Does anyone have any questions or input on this?
I think it's just a process, and thank you for sending those out so we could take a look at them. A couple of questions on the process. It seems like this might actually be something that this body could have some discussion over on these bills. I know we have a board legislative subcommittee, but that's from the board, not from the CAC. And so it seems kind of like the board makes their decisions, and then the CAC simply ratifies the decisions to do what has already been done. And so I guess from a process, getting them in an email is a wonderful thing if you have the wherewithal and the tolerance to actually read through those bills and call the legislators and start to ask them questions. I'm one of those people that actually does that, and it irritates them to no end, but it's a whole heck of a lot of fun. It might be worthwhile for this group to discuss them in a way where we can learn what those bills really mean and fulfill part of our role to help advise our elected officials as to what the people feel they should be supporting or not supporting, as opposed to our legislative officials simply telling us what they've decided to support or not support. And so I know that's a touchy subject that's been raised before, but I just thought I'd throw it out on the table.
And I'll say it seems like
that may come up under item 5C, maybe where a more appropriate spot for that discussion. I thought I'd ask.
Well, and I can answer part of that. That seems like a two-part question. One, what is the formula? This month, as I think you may all have remembered me mentioning last month, I messed up. I'm new, and I did not remember to bring it to you first for your opinions. It's purely with the start of the legislative session in January. I don't really know where I went, and I started my board presentation with, I screwed up. So the part of this, the traditional method for this, and the concern and the reason why all bills will not go to the CAC, there are going to be bills that will be introduced between the CAC and the board meeting that we must be able to take stances on. We cannot pend a month and a half to wait for the next CAC meeting so that it can go through the board so that we can legitimately say we support it. So the current process is I complete legislative updates and look for new bills of interest every week. Typically I do that on Fridays because that's when the state updates most of their bills. I will then email that to the staff, TAC, CAC, and the Board Legislative Committee for you guys to give me feedback. Is this related to PPACG? How is it? And from your perspective, whether that is RAMA, Citizen at Large, Colorado Springs, Kono, whatever you represent here on the CAC, do you feel that this will impact you personally, what you represent? You give me that, and I present that to the Board Legislative Subcommittee. They meet and review all of the recommendations from the TAC, CAC, and staff every Monday, with exceptions due to holidays like this week and last week. And after the subcommittee, staff or the Board Legislative Subcommittee send those recommendations to the PPACG Board Executive Committee. We're asking them to give us a stance, a draft stance, something where we can say our executive committee has said support of this. We understand that these positions will still not be ratified until the board meeting, but it gives me the ability to leverage PPACG's positions on bills in a faster and more expedient way. So the answer is a little bit of yes. I have no objection to talking about the bills with everyone here as well, all of the ones that we've gotten thus far this month or that have been newly presented, but I would be very uncomfortable with asking the CAC to go through every single bill and us to hold back on bringing them to the board before the CAC had reviewed them, if that makes sense.
Jen?
So there's just that window from Friday to Monday at 4 o'clock to comment on these bills? It's a pretty skinny window.
It is. And that is, I am trying very hard to make them as long as I can, but it depends on how the bills are coming in.
So when can we, if I send you a comment over the weekend, or I send you a comment up until what time on Monday, would my thoughts be projected?
If you sent it to me before 3:50, I would get it. And sometimes I keep my email up in those meetings so that if you guys are sending me last-minute thoughts, I can add those in. We tend to be pulling up the bills themselves on the website to make sure that this is the most recent fiscal note, this is the most recent language. And we do, our committee in their very first meeting really did dig in on every detail possible.
So we'll see a batch tomorrow night.
You will indeed see a batch on Friday night.
Friday.
Hopefully, I will actually get it to you earlier, but it just depends on everything else happening. Tomorrow's the joint land use study event, so just need nothing from me tomorrow.
Let me share with you from the board meeting itself, because there was considerable discussion about this process, and some people who actually have legislative experience were digging down into a level of detail that made my eyes water, so I'll leave it at that. But the point of it is that you now get a spreadsheet. Everybody's getting a spreadsheet that has links to basically the law, the narrative about it, the bill, the narrative, the financial note or fiscal note if there is one, any kind of detail that might suggest that there is a mandate that could come down, funded or unfunded, as the case may be. So the links are there if you need to dig into it fairly quickly to get what you want to know. This is going to be something I think we'll talk about here when we get to, 5C, that we have a responsibility to act on. I got the feeling from some of the members of the board that they're waiting to have everything sort of handed to them, and there's no time to do that. The legislature is moving at its pace, and we meet once a month, so we can't kind of roll everything slowly through our part of it. We need to take some action and some responsibility. So I encourage you to do so. Scott?
Thanks, Chairman. So if I understand it, because of the speed and the clarity that these things tend to get through subcommittees, we just don't have an opportunity for public discussion on a monthly basis in a timely enough manner to be able to make a recommendation. So in lieu of that, I think the discussion piece is valuable. I learn a lot listening to what other people say, and it keeps me from getting my own tunnel vision. But if the legislative subcommittee from the board meets on a weekly basis, would it be something advisable, or would it be something that we should consider having CAC representation on that legislative subcommittee? I know it's a big time piece for somebody. You have to meet once a week, and I know they're open meetings. They have to be. Anybody who wants to can walk in, but there's a difference between walking in and listening and walking in and being able to participate.
Could we put that on the parking lot for the discussion at 5C, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any other comments? No, sorry.
I'm going to add one quick comment that the makeup of the legislative subcommittee is within the board bylaws, so to make any changes to that would require an entire board bylaw review.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I would really appreciate having CAC presence there, because I know that our board members who are on that committee would give great weight to the opinions of people who can attend, and that is totally set up so that you can conference in if you are not capable of being there in person.
Well, I certainly appreciate the time and effort you've gone through to put these in a format that we can dig into it. Thank you very much.
Will you include the conference information in your email, please?
I will indeed.
Thank you. Okay. Anything further for Jessica? So, what action do we need to support you?
So in this case, because you were not given the opportunity to review the bills that the board already approved supporting, I'm just asking for you to recommend that we support those, and that you're okay with this stakeholder process, which is described in your memo.
Anybody want to try a motion on that?
I know I really
to
didn't
that effect?
make a motion there, sorry.
No?
So moved.
There we go.
I'll tell you what, why don't, let me make a suggestion. Could we move acceptance of the report and the process from Jessica?
Process, yeah.
Move acceptance of the report, because we don't have anything, there's nothing to
Right.
recommend to the
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else to recommend to the board.
But just if it's here in our action list.
So moved.
Second? I hear a second. Okay. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by, oh, wait, Hal?
Sorry, but historically, we used to get an update of those bills and some level of understanding of what the legislation intent was after they'd already been kind of approved by the board. And it gave us a feel for those things that the board felt, and then we gave our input back.
Okay.
Would it be helpful if I did something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
because quite honestly, there are so many here,
Mhm.
and I'm an involved CAC member, but I'm not going to go through that and give my legislative input. I expect other people closer to the understanding level to do that.
Okay, Mr.
At
Baker.
the same time, I would like to know what the board says, we support this, this, and this, and we call upon judgment by yourself to tell us, well, this one was talked a lot about, but they decided not to support it, but I let you know that there was a lot of interest. In other words, judgment on those things that are not just passed through from the board.
Okay.
I found that very valuable, interesting, and I know in the past we had some good discussions about certain legislation.
Bob?
I did also. I remember those reports, and it was a matter of support or not in those reports. And I felt kind of then like a good soldier saying, hey, the board wants to move forward with action on that. So I think it just kind of flows down.
Okay.
From the lift station, of course.
Of course, of course. Gravity,
That was good.
gravity is not just a good idea, it's the law. Okay. Anything further? All right, we have a motion and second on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Yes, who did? Scott. Thank you. Thank you. Discussion item 5A, freight project scenarios. If I recall from the TAC, Mark, is that you?
This is it. Right, I didn't know if Kevin was going to present initially or not. So yes, there was a lot of discussion at TAC on the list, and in your packet has the different scenarios that were selected to move forward. Let me back up a little bit. This plan is part of a 5-year program for $85 million statewide, and statewide we're going to get about $15 million a year, and they're looking for approving projects for the first 2 years. So they've come up with 3 scenarios. And of the 3 scenarios, we got projects in Region 2, but we did not get any projects in Central Front Range or PPACG. So with that said, there were some statewide projects on those scenarios as well, for truck parking, things like that. So some of these statewide projects could have a component that's in the PPACG area. So we've gotten a little bit better clarification about why the projects that were submitted by PPACG a couple months ago didn't score well. And a lot of the reasons were that, for example, Charter Oaks Ranch Road was submitted as a primary project for PPACG to be considered as a freight corridor project, and I think they were asking for $6 million. It didn't fare well simply because they felt it didn't have a freight component. However, with that said, there has been some discussion with the Freight Corridors Committee to have the MPOs and TPRs go back and maybe reword or restructure their submittals. And that'll be done this month with a review in March, middle of March, at the stack. So what they want to do is formalize the list by the middle of March. I don't have the exact dates. And then submit those in April to the Transportation Commission for final adoption. So even though we weren't selected for any projects in PPACG for the first 2 years, and let me clarify, that's the first 2 years, so that's the first $30 million of the 85. we have a chance, I think, to go back and resubmit those same projects and maybe beef those projects up to show up a freight need. In other words, El Paso County at the TAC meeting was suggesting, let's describe exactly the freight benefit for Charter Oaks Ranch Road. Why can't trucks get in and out of the base? Why do we need this road for trucks? Is it substandard grades? Is it poor sight distance? What is the thing that's prohibiting the transport of military vehicles on and off the base? So, again, we're going to take another look at that and work with our freight quarters representation and see if we can't do better at the next scoring, if you will, or final scoring.
Jen?
I remember this conversation because I was really irritated about how it was brought forward. And this is what I remember. It has to be a project that's ready to go, and it's already been, it just came out of the clear blue sky. There was no, what are the freight priorities? Tell me in our region, what are significant freight issues that we're dealing with? And it was kind of this is the only one that is in this. And the terminology was not shovel-ready, but it was like that had to meet certain gates to be able to go into this. And it had to be done like ASAP. And it was very frustrating for me because it didn't seem to represent any priorities for our neck of the woods.
Well, in terms of readiness, that was one of the criteria they were looking at. I wouldn't say it's the only one. So I don't know if they were specifically saying has to be ready in 6 months, but they were considering those projects and may have scored higher. But
this is 2 years.
The freight corridors list of projects, the request for projects it came out, I think, in September. So we've had only a few months to really put this together. And so the frustration, I know what you're saying, are our priorities represented on this list. The difficulty is trying to make a priority fit within the funding that we have and make it attractive in terms of a freight corridor benefit. So that's one thing that PPACG staff looked at, and they came up with a list. So you've got the list, I think, in front of you, and I'm trying to remember all the projects that were on there, but the primary project was Charter Oaks Ranch Road, research and powers, in terms of funding the design, and I can't recall exactly the remaining projects, but maybe 115 between south of Fort Carson, between Gate 6 and south, was on there. So we were looking at, again, PPACG priorities that are in the long-range plan that we could fit into this program that we could realistically fund. So I think they were good projects. I just think that the wording and the freight corridor benefit didn't stand out to the scores.
I'm shocked that we didn't do something like research powers.
Well, again, that we put in for $2 million for design, so that was
Right.
that was money that we could use, and there's a freight corridor benefit. But we looked at, we went through the safety numbers. We identified the freight need based on retail for the Central Powers Corridor District, and so there was a lot of wording in there about freight benefit, but it wasn't specific to things like a port of entry, a truck ramp, or shoulder widening that could directly benefit trucks. And so I think that's probably why it didn't score well. So again, what we need to do is back up, take a look at the list that we submitted, decide if those are the projects we want to resubmit, and how do we compete better. Now, the remaining funding for years 3 through 5 is still out there. So there are other projects that may be more attractive. And so what I suggested to the TAC is, let's take a look at projects that are on the priority list that we could maybe advance, such as the Monument Way Station, we know we're going to have to either move that way station or reconstruct it so we can expand I-25. So that might be a first phase of that project. So maybe years 3 through 5, that would be a good project to submit.
Okay.
Yeah, and it goes along with PPACG's priority.
Okay, I saw Rachel first and then Vince.
Thanks. Do we have the list of projects that we submitted? If it's in the packet,
It should be in the
I need help.
packet, but she's looking at it right now.
The list that we submitted?
Can I see your list there? And I apologize, I thought it was in the packet.
That's faster.
This is the actual.
Faster.
there is a.
This is the
What?
legislative stuff.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah,
No,
that's
this
the
is the
faster.
16, 17 that
So-
we didn't get on the list.
So this list is what was finalized as far as the 3 scenarios, and does not have the PPACG projects. And I was thinking what we submitted would be in our packet. So I apologize for that. We probably didn't get that to you.
Can we get that out by the end of the week?
We can get that to you. So you'll know where we came from. Here's what PPACG staff was recommending, and here's the final 3 scenarios that they
And so
chose.
the list that's in the packet that says agenda item 5B, these are the freight projects that were selected?
No,
5A.
That is a faster safety and highway safety improvement program.
All right, upper left-hand corner says
beforehand.
National Highway Freight Program.
Okay. I just wasn't sure what that last list was. Thank you.
Okay. Vince?
The Monument Way Station, by chance, is that going up to the Larkspur turn-in area, the old rest station?
You know, years ago, they wanted to relocate, and they did a study, and nobody wanted them. And so they stayed where they were, and they rehabilitated their scales and did some improvements. They don't want to be there necessarily. It's very difficult because of the hill. And so they want to be somewhere else. We are in conversation with them with the planning study that we're doing to see what their needs are. So we haven't identified a location or really what, if their needs are even current. Because there's been a lot of new technology that's come along with Weigh in Motion. They still need the scales. They still need those to physically have trucks come off and weigh them. But most of their weight is done with Weigh in Motion, so they can do that electronically as the truck travels over the scale at a high speed.
When we did the Trail Lakes Comprehensive Plan, that was a recommendation, is not to have it there because of the reasons it shouldn't be there today. In that Larkspur area where they had the pull-out, the restoration up there, seemed like an ideal place because they couldn't bypass.
Right.
They had to go
Right.
through. So, anyway.
No, that area's been discussed. That's where they wanted to be, was that rest area. At the time, it was being used as a rest area. Now it's closed, so it may be an opportunity. But the bottom line is, I think we need to look for, if we introduce new projects, let's look at what would really directly benefit freight. So CDOT can work with PPACG in helping develop that list.
Okay. Let me just kind of summarize. We've got nothing on here that's ours, but it's going to come back for review, and hopefully we'll have new data in March on what has happened as a result of that revisiting.
Right.
Correct?
They're asking the MPOs and PPRs to participate in an effort that's going on in March to determine that final list.
Okay.
So I think there'll be an opportunity for the TAC to participate with that, and then Norm Steam is going to participate with that effort as well. So
Okay, well, if you could work with Jessica and Bethany and get us what was submitted before by the end of this week, and then if there are any changes in that, we'll talk about them in March.
sounds good.
Okay?
All right.
Thank you, Mark. Faster and Hyssop, who owns that one? Oh, Matt. And that's this sheet?
Yes, sir. Yes, and there should also be, I think, kind of a high-level summary, about 8 pages, about the HSIP and Faster Safety Program, and kind of describe how the region went through selecting projects.
No, we did not get that.
All we had is
Okay.
this.
It's hard when you have no.
Yeah, I know, I was like, what do we do with this?
Yeah, I tried to get it through Winnie to get it to me, because I know it was a requested thing, so I tried to write this up for last week, but I don't know if Winnie was able to get it to the person that was asking for it, so I apologize for that.
How do you want to proceed with this, then?
I
We
still
don't
would
know
like
the-
to proceed, because this is, Karen's asking us to go through, our planning partners to get buy-in back on these proposals, and I can speak to this, as best as possible. That's the document right there that I was referring to.
I haven't seen that. Okay, well,
Okay.
I'm sorry,
What's that?
It's only on the online version because we didn't get it in time for mail out.
Okay.
okay, so I can
can
sneak,
download it.
I can take a peek at it here. Or there. It's going to be a little hard to try to
Again,
read
like I
it.
said, I'm going to speak to it. I'm going to give
Okay.
you some high levels.
Well, you've got 8 minutes.
I will try to go as fast as I can. All right. Well, starting back in September of last year, Karen had asked the upper-level managers to start preparing for the next year rolling STIP FY18 to 21. So as part of that task, my group in traffic started evaluating locations to identify that would qualify for the Highway Safety Improvement Program or the Faster Safety Mitigation Program. With that being said, we got feedback from our planning, prior planning partner meetings, TPR, MPOs, county hearings, feedback both from Mark Andrew, the North Program Engineer, Jin Hugh, South Program Engineer, and ourselves in traffic from noted accident fatality reports and high injury reports. With that being said, what my group went through and taking into account these locations, and what that is a list that you see before you that you actually is in your packet, were the locations that were in that time frame, September and October, that were identified that we decided to move forward and evaluate. With that being said, so the responsibility fell on my group to do the analysis, and what this program is looking at is potential projects that can do safety improvements to try to reduce either noted above average crash patterns or accidents, particularly severe injury, fatality, or property damage. With that being said, is what we look at is across the nation is what they call is they have special performance factors or safety performance factors for different type of classification of roadways. With that classification roadway, each one, based on those factors, has a expected crash rate. So taking that into account, my group did an analysis looking at each of those sections to see where we might see above average crashes above what would be expected. So with that being said, is what we moved into next was from the standpoint once we had identified accident patterns that were typically above the national average or norm for those particular corridors, we try to identify potential what you would call treatments or safety improvements that could possibly try to rectify those noted crash patterns. And that kind of plays into some of the comments that I try to put onto the right of the sheet to kind of describe what we're trying to address. Along that line is what that plays into is what we're trying to look for is in both the Faster Safety Mitigation Program and the Highway Safety Improvement Program has a certain criteria, and the biggest criteria is what they would call is a benefit to cost ratio. What that basically means is whatever the cost of the improvement, meaning construction cost, design, potentially right-of-way, any environmental impacts, what is that cost of that project compared to what we would expect for the benefit of cost in doing of crash reductions based on whatever that improvement would get. So, for example, like the I-25 ramp metering, it's been kind of noted nationally that we have a typically anywhere of 15 to 20% crash reduction improvement on ramp metering when it's implemented. So that means that typically we see less crashes. So with that type of crashes, there's an assigned dollar value to that reduction. So we can compare that benefit in crash reductions to what is the anticipated cost of that project. and that's how we calculate the BC ratio. The BC ratio for the Faster Safety Mitigation Program minimum criteria is a 0.25. For the Highway Safety Program, which is a federal program, is 1.0. Right now in the region, we are trying to do a goal of at least 1 for faster safety mitigation and a goal of 2 or better for the Highway Safety Improvement Program. Any questions so far?
I have one on ramp metering, and I'm assuming by ramp metering you mean those wonderful red and green lights that allow
Yes.
us to go and no-go. One of the kind of unintended consequences of that is it tends to also back up traffic on that. And so my assumption then is that's why all of our new highway projects have very, very elongated entrance ramps onto the highway to be able to accommodate that in the future.
Typically, yes. And what we're actually looking at is that is typically in my line of business, as we kind of really call it, we call it a dummy ramp system. It's really bare bones. It basically reads on mainline traffic counts going by that ramp, and then on a base time sequence, it releases cars to get into the main line. The system we're actually looking at is what you would call as a smart or adaptive system that we're hoping to implement, like what Region 1 is doing, is that looks at the whole main line where the ramps feed in and also the side streets and collectors that feed into those ramps, so that it's a more functional system that really looks on traffic and trying not to avoid doing backups and queues. So that's the intended nature of that program that we're looking at from along that. So that is one example that not also just doing a typical ramp thing, but trying to improve the system, but also looking at from the standpoint of operationally to make sure that we don't create a problem. We're improving safety, but we're making operations of the system worse. Does that make sense?
It sounds like is what we're also doing, and the secondary benefit is we're building what do I want to say, an infrastructure monitoring system where we can start to do traffic counts off of the highway and predict what's coming onto the highway from there, which then goes to autonomous vehicles and right down the road.
In general terms, yes. There is a similar system right now that, from what I understand, is being implemented in Australia. Currently, Region 1 right now is meeting with those experts from that program they instituted to look and see how we can adapt it for I-25 up in the Denver area. Well, Region 2 is moving in that same role as Region 1 to look at that same type of system as how we can implement it. So it will be kind of the first thing to be done here in the state, from that standpoint of having a smarter system. So that plays along that line. So that is the overall goal of these projects, is from the standpoint of what you see on here is we tried to look at what is the nature of this area. Is there accident patterns that may indicate, again, above a typical norm, which is accepted statewide, nationally, per any particular type of roadway category for, freeway, interstate, principal arterial, rural, collector. They all have like standard performance factors of that nature. So with that, what we're looking at, so for example, another one on the list that I think is in in PPACG, is the northbound I-25 Monument Cobra program. So what we're looking at there is trying to do a simple striping project that's going to change the left lane drop just south of the weigh station to a right lane drop. So with that improvement, we're anticipated to see reduce some of the bottleneck issues we've seen at that particular section, but also the other accidents that we've had a lot of rear ends and side swipes. So that's kind of a proposed improvement we're trying to do. So what you see on the list is what that BC ratio is, that calculated performance as far as what we expect is from the standpoint of benefit to cost, what we expect to get out of the project, and then the costs associated to give us that benefit cost ratio. We try to rank each of the projects based in order of benefit to cost ratio and take into account the cost of the project, but also feedback from our planning partners on what might be a priority along that line. And taking that into factor, we try to balance a lot of these projects based on our available funding for FY21 for faster safety. We have a little over about $14 million. and about $5.1 million for the Highway Safety Improvement Program. And that's kind of typical per year per program, in both of those programs for CDOT. So again, what you see is what we're trying to recommend based on that information. Yes, sir.
You know, there's one here that just kind of jumps off at me, jumps off the page, and it's down, it says number 4, and it's US 287 between Lamar and I think it's Eads.
Yes, sir.
The benefit cost ratio is 0.4. They've had 6 injuries and 8 fatalities since 2006.
Right, and I know that sounds large, but you have to take it over the count of period. Most of other things, what you see on this report, were actually looked at from the standpoint of 2010 to the last accident data history we have is 2015 of December. So really from the standpoint is we went to a larger period of time over that analysis just to even get to that benefit cost ratio based on that analysis for that program, that area. But along that line, what you see on here is where the X's are the projects we're recommending to move forward for FY21. This is intended to be a continuing rolling list of potential available projects that would meet the criteria for faster safety or the Highway Safety Improvement Program so that we can have a list of noted areas that potentially need addressing. So for future rolling, the 4-year rolling STIP, we have projects that identified we can recommend to move forward. So in that sense, this is going to be trying to, as a commitment from Karen, because she wants us to make sure that we get all of our planning partners, the TPOs and MPOs, so in this case the CAC, to agree to the projects we're trying to move forward to try to improve our region, because again, the goal of these projects is trying to get down to 0 deaths and trying to reduce noted issues in our area. So,
Rachel?
Yes.
And then Ellen?
Your memo says that that regions can choose to nominate other safety projects. Did we nominate others?
Typically what that is that's what this goes through this process, is that we submit a project to an application and they decide that they don't agree with our findings. We can submit another project that we think would qualify and then see if that would qualify, because that is part of the process. Again, this is a potential list. All of these projects, we have to write an application to our CDOT headquarters to see if they agree with our assessment. And then if they agree, then we will move forward with them in a project and actually work on putting them in the STIP and TIP as appropriate for their defined areas.
I know that we'd heard at one point a lot of concerns from Schriever about safety on Highway 94. Was that considered? I know there was a safety study at one point.
And to be honest with that question, given the time frame that we were trying to identify locations, and I take some of that responsibility, we were trying to identify locations to try to get through an analysis from the standpoint that we'd have in time for the joint TPR. So technically we really started this process probably a little bit later than we thought. But that has been brought to my attention. I tend to put it on this list to look at for potentially for FY22. Now, with that being said, anything on this list for the next year rolling STIP for 18 to 21, if we want to, we can move that money and advance that project sooner. It's just that it has to be on the approved list for the asset management through CDOT, which is why we're wanting your buy-in for these projects that we are going to try to apply for to make sure to get money for these particular projects.
Okay.
So hopefully that answers your question.
Ellen, you had a question? No? Hal?
Am I correct that when you say get our buy-in into the projects, it's the one under FY21 FSA, wherever there's an X?
Yes, wherever the ones where the X is, and it's actually all 3 columns, because along that line is I have some extra allotment in some other years for HSIP to try to move some other projects available. Because in the region, every region traffic, we're trying to program about 120% above our available allotment. So with that being that I had still some room in my available allotment, so what you see in the 20 list was another project I'm trying to add on, to put into the rolling STIP and our approved asset list.
Okay, Rachel again, and then I'm going to wrap this up.
Has the TAC already heard this item?
Yes, I presented to the TAC last week, and I plan to present to the Board of Directors their next meeting.
Thank you.
Jen?
So, is it unrealistic to think that you could include, like 94 on that way out to Schriever?
Well,
in this group?
along this line is, again, these were the projects that I trying to get the analysis and trying to get the group that we were recommending to move forward. What also keeping this list is from the standpoint, if we have available money, I want this list to have projects that I can move forward and recommend to try to apply. So, and what you see before you, like I said, is trying to be an active, live list that in the region we have our noted issues and that nothing kind of falls by the wayside. Does that make sense?
Hold on.
On 94? So 94, it's come up several times about, we've had fatalities, we've had some serious accidents out there. We are doing improvements at Peyton in 94. We had a fatality there.
Right.
We saw the need to fund that. That project's funded to add turn lanes. It's in design right now. Also, the city and I think it was the county, with their call for priorities from PPACG, I believe it was the city that put on their priority list they want to put money into 94. So that's a step forward. If that's a board priority, then we can look at what the needs are out there. Now, it has shoulders. Trash Hill's got some issues, with sight distance, things like that. So there's some improvements we can make on that roadway. But so more to come on that. I don't think we're looking at opportunities to fund something out there besides that intersection.
And to kind of what I brought up, what I was trying to say is along that line is what the projects we're putting on, we have to look at it, trying to make sure it meets the qualifications for those particular funding groups. So for along that line from 94, yes, I'm happy to add it to the list and look at analysis and seeing if I do have available money to move it up the list. But again, this is what we, at the time when we started the analysis, trying to work with what information we got, we were going to move forward with the available allotment that I have for both programs to try to get funded for 21.
Okay, one more question
Jim, I'm
from
sorry.
Al.
Can I quickly just say that, when I look at this list, nothing's controversial except the top item, adding traffic control. I think that needs some discussion because as far as feedback from community, right or wrong on safety, there's going to be feedback from the community on that one. So
I'm sorry, which one?
the top one.
Number one.
Everything sounds great.
Item number one.
Right. But as far as signing off or approving or recommending, on that one, I think you need CAC discussion.
Yep.
Well, and if I can, along that line, to answer your question, is through the process, this is not the CDOT design it and build it. There is going to be a collaborative effort to take into stakeholder input, all this stuff. That's why I'm saying that, fortunately, right now, Region 1 is going through this process. We're tending to piggyback that from that process. So that does involve, stakeholder input, looking at the best alternative. Is this the right system? This is not going to be built within the next year. This is going to be probably 1 to 2 years to get through design, then to do construction. So it's not an immediate process.
My only point would be that there's a little bit of nuanced language around whether we buy in theory, future discussion, as you say. Let's just be careful on how our agreement is phrased.
Right now, this is a discussion item. We're not being asked to make a recommendation, comment, or anything further. I think if there is a specific request for us to recommend to the board to approve or not approve, it needs to come forward with that requirement, because I think that's a more detailed discussion than we allowed for today. Yes. So we need to may have a complete package that would include not only the background, but I'm not clear. When I got this, I started looking through it, and it looks like there's only 2 projects right now, unless I'm missing it, that are part of our area.
Well, no, sir, you have research and powers.
Where is that? Because I never know that.
Down on the bottom.
Oh, down at the bottom.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, the traffic locations are across 14 counties. The South program focused on,
This aren't us.
10 counties in the southern program area, particularly the southeast TPR and the south central TPR. North program was focusing on PPACG and Central Front Range.
I understand what I'm saying is, from the point of view of the members of the CAC, you give us a list of everything that includes the state or whatever that you're responsible for, which is fine. But it would help us to know that this one, this one, this one, and this one are the in our area that we need to make a comment on, and we're not trying to sort out the rest of this stuff. Because it's, have you seen the lift station package yet?
I understand. Well, I guess from that standpoint is I need to know from understanding, because I'm trying to make a commitment to go through this process, because we're trying to get these projects agreed upon so we can move forward, because there's a time period we have to get the applications that I have to get this in from the standpoint so that I can have them available to get on the step.
If you want us to make a formal recommendation to the board of PPACG with our formal comments, we need to get a package and we need to schedule it that way. It came to us for discussion. We're happy we've had a discussion, but we can't move any further forward.
I'll have to discuss that with Winnie, because that was what I was trying to communicate, and apparently it was misunderstood.
Okay, and bring it back to us next month if you need to, as an action item. Okay, Tamara?
So, I mean, I agree we need to have an action, but if you bring it back next month, are you missing your deadline, or what's the...
I'm not necessarily missing deadline. It just, again, I'm trying to get these projects approved and through our application process at headquarters so that I can have them ready because we have to have them on part of the asset list for the next rolling step for FY 18-20, which hits July 1st.
Okay.
So that's my time frame.
March should give you plenty of time for us to take a look at it and have a reasonable discussion.
Just for your information, the list you see on in the packet is the information that would be similar to the same discussion, I guess, in your next CAC meeting.
Ray?
The problem I have here is I'm looking at a bunch of US 24A MP 272.75 line curve.
Right.
I have no idea where that's at. Highway 24 is a big, big road. Is that in my district, my area? Is that on the other side of town? See, that's the problem I have with this. I don't know if it's important to me to
Okay,
move on.
all right. Okay, and we're not voting.
I know
We're not
when it
voting
comes
today.
around, he was saying this is what's going to come forward next time. If this is what's going to come forward, I can't vote on it.
And we're over time on this subject. Vince?
Quickly, you presented this to the TAC, right? Did they vote on it and approve it?
They agreed, and they seemed agreeable to the list moving forward.
So they approved it?
Oh, was it a discussion? Okay, I stand corrected.
Okay, so is there anything that you want to add, Brian? Okay. All right. I want to close this out right now. We're way over on this particular topic, and invite you back, Jessica, if you you and Bethany together can figure out how we work this into the agenda for next month. Real quickly, while we're getting ready to have the big discussion, which we're behind on, coming around to you is the list that was submitted by PPACG for the freight corridors. This is what we just asked for, and believe it or not, we're actually getting it before Friday, which is not bad.
Thank you.
Okay? Awesome. Bethany has just done magic. I don't know who did the magic, but it's been done. That's good. So that's the list of what was submitted for that.
Can I just clarify one thing? I gave her the list. I had it with me. The ones that I show advanced are the ones that were the final recommendation for those selection scenarios.
Oh, okay.
So this was the entire list that includes all of Region 2.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, CAC roles and responsibilities. More stuff to come around to you. In case you did not get a chance to read it in the attachment on Vince's reflections on our roles and responsibilities. One of the things that I want to do in our time today, and we're going to not quite do a half an hour because we do have some other things on the agenda, and I don't want to keep you until 6 o'clock. because that'd be a bad start on my administration.
That's impeachment.
There'd be chaos at my house, not just at the White House. Vince has brought this forward, but I've had comments from a number of people in talking about, and over the course of my term so far with the CAC,
Trying to catch it up.
we've had reflections and discussions about, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? Are there other things that we should be doing? Are we a rubber stamp? And for many of us, there are other things that we could be doing with our life other than coming to this meeting, unless there's a purpose involved. We do have, in the course of our joining this august organization, we do have a committee member description that talks about what some of our responsibilities can be. And in our monthly packet, we also get a sheet that contains the information about what the committee itself is supposed to be doing. Now, one thing that I will say is from the board meeting this month, I heard a couple of different members of the board reflect on their interest in receiving information from the TAC and CAC on the issues that come before them. Many things, I think, like the amendments to the TIP, tend at the board level to be adopted in the consent agenda. So unless we have some sort of real heartburn with something, that's going to tend to flow through. I'm getting an up and down, so everything. So far, I haven't said anything wrong, so I'm hoping that that'll work. Vince has reflected on this for some time, and we sent out to everyone a copy of his thoughts and ideas. And I'm hoping that that will open the floor to discussions about, are we doing what you expected to be doing when you signed up for this? Are there other things that we should be thinking about? We've had a discussion already about what we might be doing in conjunction with the board's legislative committee during the legislative session and finding a way to address that. Do we need to be doing some work through short-term subcommittees or ad hoc committees that we would establish to do certain things? One of the things I noted in our responsibilities is that we're supposed to have a plan for the year. And I'm not sure what that was supposed to look like, but in my time, and not casting aspersions on any of my predecessors, but in my time, we've not had that kind of a plan laid out as to targets for things we wanted to do. We've been reactive. We've been waiting for something to be put in front of us, and then we discuss it and we bring certain information to bear. So I would like to open the floor at this point. I don't know who wants to start the discussion, but I would like to open the floor at this point and pick any of those questions. Are we doing what you expected to be doing? Are there things you think we ought to be doing that we're not doing? Are there things that you think we ought to be putting more emphasis on or less emphasis, and how we might handle that? So,
Jim,
who's first? Bob?
Your opening comments. The board receives the minutes from our meeting.
That's correct.
However, you as an attendee at the board meeting and giving a report, if there is heartburn, you should register that heartburn at that point in the board agenda.
Right.
Okay.
I agree. I'm going to start calling on people. Fran?
Yeah, I appreciate what Vince did. When I read his email, I thought he had done a Vulcan mind meld, because for 3 years, we've been here the same amount of time, and when I sat before a couple of the city councilmen and said, hey, you want to be on this committee, the breadth and scope of everything that we were going to, I thought, discuss, said, this is great. I'm not really strong in transportation, but I think I could be strong in this area. And then when I got here, it's all the tip and the stip and the lift stations, and it has not lived up to my expectations of what I thought it was going to be. And when May comes around this year, I'm going to go find something else to do. So I appreciate you bringing that up, but it is time to take a look at what we should be doing.
Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One little, gosh, it's a strange little detail, and I realize that we're a community that's measured in acres as opposed to square miles out in Rama, but it would be nice if we were actually named in the body of the document. I think we were a late comer to it, and when you look at committee composition, there isn't one that says a person from the town of Rama, and so we'd like to be included in that.
Noted.
But to both Fran and Vince's point, when you look through the responsibilities, and the very first line is identify problems and needs within the respective communities that relate to PPACG program. We spend an inordinate amount of time in this body talking about whether or not we're going to recommend the approval of a highway project we really have no idea the scope of. At PPRTA and at HAC, we get down into details on how many traffic cones, because that's the part we understand, as opposed to it's $1 million a mile to build a roadway. So by the time we get this type of thing to us, our time for input is to bring to the forefront early, when this is being compiled, what are the roads in your neighborhood that are actually a problem? What do the GIS surveys miss? Because that's where most of that data is compiled. And how do we input into things like the Major Transportation Corridors Project, and how does that tie through to the road and highway improvements that are going on? And then how do we hold our elected officials accountable for listening to the citizens that they represent? If we simply turn into, and it happens a lot on these boards and commissions, all we really do is rubber stamp a decision that's already been made, we've really lost the opportunity to do what our elected officials want us to do. They truly do want the input. They truly do want the discussion. And they want to know what we feel is important for them to be doing in a collaborative effort. I think one of the biggest pieces is the no man's land on the west side. That's been in talks for 10 years. It's not something new. Folks like Welling and his wonderful wife Sally have been pounding on the table for that ever since I think I met you. I was listening to that. Well, now it's a reality, and it's because citizens continued to push and continued to push and continue to push to take care of a major problem. We have major problems along the South Academy corridor. I've seen South Academy repaved in 40 years, I think 8 times. It's never been paved well. It continues to have the same holes and potholes and undercut. We continue to hear that there's, it's $200 million, so we're not going to look at it, while good private enterprises have wonderful plans for redeveloping that. We should be talking to our elected officials about those types of projects that affect the communities we live in. It is line 1 in our expectation and responsibility. And that's the one thing that we don't bring to it. We simply react to presentations that are made that we may or may not have had any input in the future.
Okay.
So that's my input.
Noted. Alan?
I would just go a step farther than Scott, and thank you for that, by saying that the time to share information in our communities and bring it back by the way we manage agenda timing on a schedule across the year would be greatly enhanced our effectiveness up to the board and out to the community. And my understanding is we sit in a role where the information flows and the opinions flow 2 ways, up to the board as well as from this meeting back out to the community. And the opportunity to follow up and make that more effective would be greatly appreciated.
Any occur to you as you think about that you would like to, across a year? For example, we heard from Pete Kaliski that he's going to come to us now quarterly with more lift stations, I guess. But he's going to come to us quarterly. So now we can plug that in. So March and whatever's 3 months after that, June, we'll block that into the agenda. I would like, since we started to bring the financial report from PPACG forward, because that's on our task list. I would like to have the finance manager come in here quarterly and kind of brief us on what's going on in trend lines, because it looks like they're managing well, but they're not hitting their budget numbers. They're kind of managing by how much money comes in. So, those would be some opportunities that we do have some accountability for from the community. Anything that occurs to you that you would like to hear routinely?
Oh, what I would like, Jim, and what's possible, sometimes far apart.
I know.
Well, to tell you the truth, right now I'm bogged down in a situation that Ray and I share with our community that you all are probably will think resonate from your own perspective, which is we live in a community that is mostly viewed by its own inhabitants as well as the surrounding region as a commuter, bedroom community, and we have it's a huge challenge trying to get information out and get input back. The time to participate in a survey, attend a public information meeting, even read a newspaper or a blog is we fight for this. We fight to get in front of people who at the same time are very interested in the results. They just don't believe they have time to pay attention or be participatory. And so I'm bogged down in that aspect right now. So it's very hard for me to see further, but all the information shared is an opportunity for me to go back and try to share it out in the community in a timely fashion in the hopes of raising the level of interest and therefore increasing the participation.
So would it help if we made a point in each meeting to identify those things that need communication and talk with our communication resource about tools that are available?
It would do no harm and might ultimately, if we all worked it together simultaneously in a coordinated fashion, I think it would help tremendously over time. And I think we might see a change in reaction begin within 3 to 4 months. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim.
Yes, Bob.
I would like to know, first of all, if there is a requirement when you set up the governance of an organization like PPACG, that they must have a community advisory committee, and they must have a technical advisory committee. I know what this document says, but I truly doubt if you showed this to the board members of PPACG that they would relate to this list of identify problems and needs within their respective communities. I think it might be newsworthy to them that is there. I served on the City of Colorado Springs Utilities Advisory Committee, and that was really kind of a foretaste of what I see on this committee. And that is that we are a reactive organization, that we're kind of spoon-fed our agenda of items to work through. And what I'm wondering, I guess deep down, is whether this kind of format that we have been laboring with now 6 years is systemic, as opposed to something that we have a lot of choice about and putting forth ideas. When Vince came up with the town hall concept, I went directly to Rob, sat down with him, and said, "Here's a good idea." And the answer back was, basically, there's no revenue for that to offset the expense. And Vince had thought further down the line and thought about how we could house that in a different method by utilizing resources from the community that there might not be cost. And there is this in many respects, I found that there is a silo around things, that when you come up with innovation, it's not like it is received welcoming. It is kind of seen as a, we've got our job in front of us right now. We don't need another one. I mean, I don't want to be terse, but there's a certain amount of that I think goes on with the duties that we have and the way we're seen or have been seen by the organization, by PPACG. And this is a great list, but you can also see that it hasn't happened the way it was supposed to here.
Okay. Scott, before I call on you, I'd like to get some other voices in. Tamara?
I might be the minority here, but I actually think we do a great thing here. We are not a technical body. They have a tag for that. So, Fran, you're saying you don't know a lot about transportation. I think that's okay. Because what we're here to do is give a complete different perspective, and we're asking questions that the technical people, like Mark, may not get when he meets with other engineers. But we're here to give kind of what I personally say is like a softer side, more of like, have we thought about this? Something that has nothing to do with finance necessarily, or even the technical, or I don't know how things work. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I think I embrace that, because to me, that's just as important as any technical knowledge that can be given to the board. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very important. So I'm saddened that you guys, some of you may feel that you're not being effective, but we are truly. And I hope, most of you will realize that, just in a different capacity. When I started in November 2013, I did feel like we were just rubber stamping, and I felt like, well, why am I here? What am I doing? We've to me personally, come a really long way from that. We ask really good questions. We ask questions that even on the lift station, said, why did you think of that? To me, that's our job, and we should be proud of that. I do think, and this is me personally, I fail at is getting the information I learned here back out to my community. And I don't know if all of you are doing that, but I know I am not doing that as well. I also know that every one of us could probably attend more public meetings. There's projects going on throughout the whole region. And CDOT, City, El Paso County, Manitoba, they have public meetings for the community to come and learn about a project that's coming up that's going to impact your neighborhood. Part of our job, I think, is to go to those and listen to other citizens, what their complaints are. Not necessarily that we're going up to Mark and complaining about our personal feelings, but we're there to gather information, and then we come here, and then we share that information. And then on the flip side, I think PPACG, the staff should listen to us and say, hey, we have this issue of 94, and we've been talking about it, and nothing has been done. I think the staff has some accountability towards us in that way. I think it can't be that we expect everything and then not give anything back. I think it's a two-way street. And I think the fact that we all show up for 2 hours every month and spend 6 hours reading all this, it's because we care. And you are doing good things. I'm proud of being on this committee. Am I as effective, and is it immediate? Do we get immediate results? No, that never happens, right? But Vince, the fact that you brought it up, you educated us, and now, 5 years later, the staff says, you know what, the way we've been doing this hasn't worked. Let's take a look at what Vince said, and maybe then there's an opportunity to sit down. Things take a really long time, 10, 20 years. So I think we just have to have a little patience, and I've spoken way too long. I'm sorry.
Well, but
I concur.
am I next? Because
You're
I would
next.
like to kind of second what Tamara just said.
Okay.
I feel like 75% of the value that I was hoping to get out of this, we're getting out. I see our role as a number of things, asking good questions. Are you really sure that that's the way you want to prioritize that? And in those areas, we've had some impact on changing the way that certain projects are evaluated. The other thing is to act as a little bit of a check and balance, even though we're not technical people. I mean, we find things that it's like, well, that doesn't look right and sound right and taste right. I'm going to use one example because I did hold a town meeting today with one of the groups that I serve in, and we did the transportation survey. And then, of course, in order to do that, I had to explain what PPACG does and what CAC does. And part of that is as a check and balance system. Our discussion on the NOPE policy, not 1 penny extra, there's people that want to change that. I don't think we should let that occur, because that's part of our responsibility as citizens. Now, that's an aside. As I said earlier, that's like the 75% level. I think we do great. Do we really want to see all the tips? No. But if we don't see all the tips, how do we find the ones that we would disagree with? Can they be shortened? Can they be condensed? I think that's a valid point. It's that 25% that we haven't addressed. What about the strategies that we as citizens and others can bring? You know, why isn't Tejon Street a walking street? Maybe it shouldn't be. I've been here 3 years. I've never even heard that question asked. And as a Citizens Advisory Committee, it's stuff like that that I think we should have a role in. And I don't think we do that piece well.
Okay.
What we do, I'm with Tamara. I think it is 75% of our value. We're missing that piece that I think you did a great job of bringing to us. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking
We're
with
going to
it.
do 3 more minutes today. We're going to bring this back around next month.
From what I understand, and from when I first joined the group, it is a requirement for getting federal funding that you have a group, a community group, advisory committee that you weigh doing against. I will. When I first started, which was before 2013, I was always asking questions, and I think to the irritation of no, I'm not going to vote on something I don't understand, and I'm not going to vote on something I don't have any information about.
Look what
I think
got you.
We've been meaning to talk to you.
Yeah, and you see sometimes my little petulance with not getting enough poop on something. But one of the things that I've noticed is that there's been a real forward movement that we're going to ask intelligent questions. We're going to not vote on something we don't have any information on. And so we've moved forward from a professional and intelligent sense. We aren't rubber stamping anything. I will say that since we are essentially chartered under PPACG, we may be somewhat restricted just by the board. I'm not sure. We'd have to go back and ask the board, since we are chartered by you and we exist because you need this committee, we'd like to expand our scope in such a way. One of the things that I was really hoping for was, since PPACG was working on a strategic plan, I was looking for a broader scope than, check, you got to do this, check, you got to do that. That's what they have funding for, that kind of stuff. I was looking for a broader scope that the organization had, and within that scope to look for issues that would be important to us representing our constituency. I don't even think they've started it. I don't even know where the budget is on it. One of the things I understood was that the proposals they got back when I was going to the board meetings were way exceeded what they had budgeted for. So I was looking for the strategic plan of the organization from which us to draw a broader scope of what we feel like we can offer the organization.
Hey, Jim, I agree with what Hal and Tamara have said.
I agree.
I'm just saying, when you look at this list, if your expectations, when you got this and you went through orientation, you look at this list, it doesn't check off well with what we're doing. I think we're doing such a better job than we were doing years ago of holding people accountable with the information that is presented us. But I'm just saying, I don't think anybody thinks we're supposed to be doing these things.
Well, and I think that's a fair question. Now, Scott's been very patient. I'm going to do 2 minutes, and then what I want to do is I want to come back to this next month.
Subcommittees of like J-Luce and like the transit. The meeting that Courtney and I went to today about the new transit station, if you have an interest in any of the things that get presented to us and you want to serve on a different group or an expanded group with something that you or your constituency is interested in, man, you jump up, stand up, because any of the chairs that I've worked with, or any of the vice chairs, have said, if you want to do something, speak up, and we'll try and get you a voice on that particular committee.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can, as a CAC member, weigh in on other issues if you want to.
Yeah, let me foot stomp on that, by the way. We'll try to get more information out about the opportunities for you to attend some of these things where you have an interest, and you can bring that back. Now, 1 minute.
Yeah, I'll try 30 seconds. To Tamara's point, you're absolutely correct. We provide the absolute best input when we ask questions no one else is asking, and that is our job. At the basic, that is what our job is. Where it gets frustrating is when we get the information at such a late level that it doesn't really matter what question we ask. The decision's already pretty much been made. The list has been adjudicated. Those items have been there. And we've been pretty good recently, I'd say over the last 6 to 8 months, at simply not voting. And you see what happens when we do that. All of a sudden, we start to get the information a lot faster and a lot more completely because we didn't rubber stamp something. And so to your point, that's absolutely our job, is to ask the questions no one should ask, or no one else has asked, and help to provide the guidance. PPACG CAC is mandated. You're absolutely right. Funding goes away if we don't exist. This isn't an at-will organization that can be created and not created. It's much like Highway Advisory Commission for El Paso County. The amount of control that we have is only limited by how we use it and how we apply it. We can ask all of the subcommittees for information in a process or in a format that we want to see it, and we can certainly attend any of the subcommittees ourselves. And I'll be at that now that I know that legislative group is on those times. I can get out of work early enough to get to a 4 o'clock meeting. That's not difficult. So I'll probably be showing up there. So I very much appreciate that point. We are a very valuable body. But sometimes we have to be careful that we're also the same body that simply provides cover when something is coming down the pipes that is not quite palatable to the rest of the population, and we do have to be careful of that.
Okay, that was a long 30 seconds, but that's okay. Okay. Vince,
Different watch.
do you want to react, or do you have any thoughts right now? Because this is going to be an ongoing conversation, obviously.
I would just add one thing, and that's when I did research, and it's in the paper there is no other COG, there is no other group like a COG that has a CAC.
When you're looking at Colorado, maybe, but there are CACs for MPOs across the country.
Colorado.
Yeah.
Colorado. And that doesn't mean that we don't have a purpose for a CAC, but there is no other CAC citizens group in any other COG in the state of Colorado. And there's 14 of them.
Okay. All right, I'm going to cut that. Hopefully there's a frustration level now that everybody would like to be doing more, which is what I'm hoping is now you will go back and be thinking about this. Let's see how we can get through. Is Karen here? Karen, would you come talk to us about healthcare fraud in 5 minutes? We'll give you the full 5 minutes. We're going to run a little, I hate to say this, but on my first meeting, we're going to run a little long, but not too long.
So good afternoon. My name is Karen Morgan. I'm passing out some information, a copy of what we have actually right up on the screen regarding the Senior Medicare Patrol. As I said, my name is Karen, and I work here at the AAA. Most of you know that the AAA help seniors and individuals with disabilities navigate the complexities of Medicare coverage. Do you also know that our AAA is part of the Senior Medicare Patrol program? So the Senior Medicare Patrol essentially is comprised of volunteers, Medicare beneficiaries, and it allows those volunteers to make a difference in their community by working to ensure the Medicare program will be protected for future generations. The most effective and direct steps that we can take to improve Medicare's long-term health is ridding the program of waste, fraud, and abuse. And no one feels more strongly about keeping criminals out of Medicare than seniors themselves. So seniors are a wonderful asset to assist us in preventing Medicare fraud. We are on a quest to find volunteers within the Medicare community to assist with the Senior Medicare Patrol program. Senior Medicare Patrol individuals really empower and assist Medicare beneficiaries, their families, and caregivers, and they do so through outreach, counseling, and education. We work in three main areas. We conduct outreach and education, we engage volunteers, and we receive beneficiary complaints. So Medicare beneficiaries that have questions or issues or concerns regarding fraud have a means to have these issues addressed and resolved. The Senior Medicare Patrol program, as I said, depends on volunteers. We are greatly, we are serving a large number in our community. However, we are not necessarily counting those numbers accurately. We are looking to get the word out in the community about the Senior Medicare Patrol. Many individuals know about our Medicare counseling. They understand the SHIP program. They come to the Area Agency on Aging with questions about their Medicare coverage. But for every one individual that comes through this door or one individual that might call this office, there are 25 or 50 individuals out in the community that don't know about the Senior Medicare Patrol and the Area Agency on Aging. So I am asking each of you to be aware of the fact that the Senior Medicare Patrol does exist, that the Senior Medicare Patrol would welcome Medicare beneficiaries to volunteer their time and their services to help get the word out to other Medicare beneficiaries about these services. Senior Medicare Patrol volunteers do not need to be individuals that are well-versed in Medicare, that know about insurance issues or coverage issues. Senior Medicare Patrol volunteers do not solve Medicare fraud issues or do investigation into those issues. Senior Medicare Patrol volunteers direct seniors to this office so that we can assist them with those issues. There has been a lot of effort made by Medicare to get the word out regarding the SMP. The telephone number for SMP, the 1-800-503-5190, is one of many telephone numbers that seniors can use to contact Medicare if there are any fraud concerns or abuse concerns. Any senior can contact this office directly, either by coming into the office or calling us directly. Not every issue or concern is Medicare fraud. Oftentimes, it is a matter of education and clarification to the senior or to the beneficiary. And that is just as important as fighting fraud. No one wants to feel that they were the victim of abuse or fraud. No one wants to be the victim of abuse or fraud. But feeling that you have been treated improperly or unfairly is very disconcerting and very distressing. And oftentimes a matter of education and clarification will help our Medicare beneficiaries understand perhaps that they were not understanding the entire circumstance or consequences of those circumstances. So we are making an effort to get the word out regarding the Senior Medicare Patrol, to increase our volunteer network as much as we possibly can. We rely on volunteers in our office, not only for our front desk, SHIP volunteer cooperation is extremely important to the AAA. If we did not have SHIP volunteers, if we did not have SMP volunteers, we would not be able to assist the seniors in this community. So I am urging you to please be aware of the fact that the Senior Medicare Patrol exists. Please share the information about the Senior Medicare Patrol with the individuals that you might come in contact with. We are not only looking for folks that might assist us with getting the word out, but we are also always looking to help any organization that may be looking for a speaker or for information about Medicare, the AAA, or any of the services that the SHIP program offers. I am happy to offer our services and to let you know that we would be thrilled to speak to your organization or to any individuals that might benefit from information or assistance or guidance regarding Medicare.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Any questions at this point? I will say this one, and SHIP, if I understand it, that's the Senior Health Insurance Program?
That's correct, the Senior Health Insurance Program.
Don't ask me why I know that, but I know that. I would tell you that I think this is important work. I know there are a lot of people who come to it without any kind of background. So.
Yes.
Karen, just really quickly, have you connected with the El Paso Fountain Valley Senior Citizens Program?
I work here at the Area Agency on Aging as a SHIP counselor.
Okay, so have you done a presentation down there?
At the Fountain Valley? No, as a matter of fact, we are coordinating and trying to put something together with them, hopefully during some of the congregate meal.
I happen to represent them. I'd love to get with you after this meeting.
Wonderful.
And get you dialed in.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay, Karen, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Appreciate that. That's something I didn't know about at all. All right, do you want to do it from back there?
Sure.
Okay, you don't need to come clear up here.
Yeah, but-
Well, does he need to?
On the microphone.
I'm sorry, he has to be on the microphone. Okay, sorry.
I love it, this happened.
All right, hello again, Kevin Reyes, Transportation Planner. Just a quick update on the NOPE Policy Task Force meeting that we put together. If everyone remembers, we had this as a discussion item back before the new year. NOPE is the not one penny extra policy that was adopted by the board in 2006 that says that project sponsors cannot get additional money once their project is already in the TIP. If you remember, the CAC and PPACG both recommended to the board in December to keep the existing NOPE policy, and the TAC recommended that we adopt CDOT's cash management advanced construction policy and also allow project sponsors to change the scope of a project in order to keep it fiscally constrained. So we had two differing recommendations to the board, so they tabled the item to go back for further discussions to the committees, and so the TAC recommended that we have this policy task force to try to figure this out. So we met for 2 hours last week, just before the TAC meeting, and we had a lot of great discussion. I think we made really good progress on it. From that meeting, we established a list of goals that we want to try to accomplish, and those goals are minimize and manage cost overruns, efficient and timely use of federal funds, provide flexibility for the use of federal funds within the laws allowable, make the process easier for PPACG and local entities, and meet the federal and state requirements. So we came up with those, and then if you all remember, when I presented this item to the CAC, I had a list of potential alternative policies that we could adopt. So we also added to that list as well. I didn't put it in your mailout because we had this meeting after the mailout. So if you are interested, I can email everything we discussed after this meeting, just to keep you guys up to date on on all those details there.
We have one vote, yes. at least.
Okay, I'll follow up with that and get that sent out over in the next couple of days.
I think it'll make the rest of the conversation flow faster, easier.
Yeah, I think so too. So that's really everything that we discussed. So,
Kevin, in that task force, was there discussion to have an asset management program like the state has? You have to have assets to manage?
well, so I guess a little background on that. So the advanced construction policy that they have that's the one you're referring to that CDOT does. So that basically allows you to take money from future years and use them in the current year. So your question is, do we have money? Do we have future assets that we can pull back? Is that what your question is?
It is.
Okay.
We are not the state.
So right now, CDOT does not allow us to do that. So they are also at the table at this meeting, and we have someone who can speak on more deeply into that policy at the meeting. And they are looking into changing the policy to allow MPOs to do that, but nothing has been decided with that so far.
You hate to see a house of cards built.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely, and that's definitely been discussed as well. So
Okay, you'll send out what, I guess, kind of a status. Yeah, you talked about it.
Yeah, I don't see one. I'll talk with Brian Vituli and see. Again, I don't want to step on Brian's toes. He is the chair. I personally don't have any problem with it. But again, I can't make the decision on that. So I'll see what he has to say. And, but I think.
Member present, I thought the last time
We had asked for a TAC member to be, or a CAC member to be able to attend that meeting.
Right, we never heard back.
one way or
Right.
So the
Yeah.
meeting occurred.
So the meeting occurred, and my
Representing our stance.
yeah.
So who represented us?
So my understanding is Brian has been in contact with Jim, and I'm not sure where
We
that
haven't talked about
conversation.
NOPE.
Not about
That's a different question.
Okay. So Brian basically he told me to let everyone know he's still working through that. I'm not sure where that has left with him. I know Brian and Jen have emailed. I was in the thread and everything, so I just left it to Brian. I wanted to stay out of that, and I honestly not sure where that stands with Brian. But he did say to mention that he's working through that right now, and he's not sure where that stands.
So I'm to understand that after 2 hours of discussion, we've increased our potential options and not come to any conclusions.
We have goals.
We've yeah.
Oh, that's right.
We've increased our options, but that we
There's
are.
additional meetings that are projected.
Oh yeah, so we'll have at least one more meeting before the next TAC meeting, and then we are hoping to have this wrapped up by April. So we'll have at least one more, possibly two. One policy that we're looking very seriously at is adopting a waiting list for projects, which was I'm not sure if I had that in the original list, but this is what Dr. Cog does, the North Front Range. They have a waiting list. So if a project is not fully funded, and so during the call for projects, if, for example, you have a project that is a $20 million project, and there's only $10 million available, that project sponsor can say, okay, put my project in the tip, I'll plan on paying the extra $10 million with local funds, but also put my project on the waiting list, and if extra funds do become available, I'd like to be eligible for those funds. So that's a policy we're really looking serious at. So I've been talking with Dr. Cog quite extensively over the past week to figure out exactly how they do that. So that's something that I'll be bringing back to the committee for further discussion. So,
Jessica, can we get notified on when the next meeting is? Because quite frankly, as a public meeting, we can go whether they want us there or not.
again, I don't want to be in the middle of that. That's something that I'm just the messenger here. So,
No,
That's a
Yeah.
good question then. Who is in the middle of it? Are we allowed to contact TAC directly? Or, see, that's where it's confusing to me, that staff has accountability to us, is that we express to you all, this is our opinions, these are our wants. We want them conveyed at these meetings.
absolutely.
So we tell you, and then it stops there. Like, that's maybe I'm struggling.
Yeah.
That's a no.
Stop. That's a no. Brian Vituli.
Jim, I'm sorry, I have to go.
But Brian Vituli and I said we have people that are interested in being on the NOPE
Thank you, Hal.
subcommittee, and we have people that we'd like to make sure we can exchange. And then Jim was copied on Brian's response. So
I was also
I
on that.
just suggest we let our chair communicate directly with Brian rather than storming the meeting. And just say, we have a couple of CAC people that would like to attend.
I know.
Jim?
Thank you.
I just want to finish off with saying, do you remember when we had the presentation from CDOT of their cash management policy? And they had real assets. They
Yeah.
had $600 million or some figure like that they were going to run down to some figure, like
Right.
$150 million.
Right.
And they were going to use that money that would be paid back over a period of time. They were taking some risk. But when you don't have a pile of cash to manage, I say, you don't have a cash management policy.
Okay. Well, and that sounds like a banker talking to me, but I'm just saying.
I would go farther, just to make a point. We are talking about fiscal responsibility.
Yes.
At the basic community level, and we're all, of course, impacted, so therefore we must be concerned.
Okay. Let me, I hate to cut this off, but we have to. We're on our own time now. All right. And we've already left. Jen has asked, and I think that's fair for all of us, for kind of what that list of options is that you're looking at now. Was there something else, or do we just want to see the list of options at this point?
See the results of the meeting.
Yeah, the results of the meeting. Okay. So if we
Status of where we are and what are the options that are available.
Again, if we can get information out about that meeting, if it is a public meeting, it's not something super secret where you have to know a handshake, then I think that we can go ahead and encourage folks, and let me know, because I know the two of you have already talked about it, I think, to the extent that your work will allow you to do it. And I think that's the starting point. Quickly.
We do need to be careful, though, because we are both private citizens and members of the CAC, and we serve a dual purpose. So if we show up to a meeting as a private citizen, anything is fine and anything goes. But as soon as you announce that you're a member of CAC, you then become there in official capacity. We have to be very careful of that. And if we want to have folks there in an official capacity that can stand up and say, hey, I represent CAC, that has to go through you, Jim.
Yeah, well, let me. There's two different questions that are on the table right now, and the model that I see at the near term, until Brian can formalize it, is what Brian and I are doing as far as TAC-CAC representation. He was here earlier. That's what we're trying to do, is informally, without having to change bylaws or anything like that. I would say until we can get Brian to formally say we want a CAC representative here, we can have somebody go and sit in, and just like I did at the TAC, which is really hard, I was quiet. So let's think about those terms, and the main thing right now is knowing when the meeting's going to be, so that we can sort out who can attend. Okay?
I would just suggest, because I know you started a conversation with Brian, and I wasn't sure how, if you wanted to follow up with him, just to know he's aware that someone's going to come. Okay. I saw a conversation, and
she
I just
started it as the chair, and now she's not a piece of furniture anymore, so I'll be it.
Okay. So if you want to follow up with Brian on that, I think that would be the best way to do it. So, and I'll follow up with everyone with exactly what we got. So, thank you.
We don't want to say.
I'm going to speed talk, so tell me when to slow down. Okay, just a real quick survey update. We've already gotten 245 responses on the 2050 transportation survey, but I need your help. I've got 5 responses from Woodland Park out of those 245.
We feel your pain.
Guys, I need your help. So, what I've got here are little handouts. We're going to have
5,000 people in our Woodland Park community page.
I will have better handouts for all of you. They will be available here at PPACG beginning hopefully the end of this week. We're just having a problem finding a printer. These are just a little handout, so if you guys have populations who, for some reason, aren't on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, tell them about this. They need to be using it. We have gotten, through Facebook, we've had 3.5 thousand people see the link. We've had 407 people engage with the link, either clicking it or sharing it or commenting on it. We're doing really well, but keep pushing it. I personally am sharing it every day on my Facebook page. My personal one, my friends would really like to stab me. So I would like you all to be in the same boat with your friends. Second,
I don't have any friends anymore.
okay. Second half of this is the schedule. It has not changed, you'll notice, but I'm giving it to you again so that you all know very quickly what we're doing. The survey is scheduled to close March 9th. You all got an email from me with a doodle poll asking you for your availability the next week. We will be doing what we talked about, intense community engagement, TAC-CAC, combined work session that following week. So the week of, I think we're looking at the 12th and 13th, maybe the 13th and 15th.
No, I'm waving goodbye to Mr. Baker.
At that point, it will go to the TAC the following week. The TAC is the group who develops the goals from the results. They will then bring that to the CAC, and I will then have a month that I am going to be begging you all to get out into the community as much as humanly possible. And please, this is what the TAC is proposing as goals. What do your communities think? What do you think? If you haven't talked to 100 people between the March and April CAC meetings, I'm so going to cry at you. I will literally, I'll cry at all of you. Because what we need is, that's where we need the CAC's role. You guys are designed to give us input from the community and take information from us out into the community. So, on this CAC roles and responsibilities, I'm giving you one. If anybody has any other questions about the survey or wants more details, feel free to reach out to me individually. And if you have not shared the survey on Facebook or Twitter,
We boosted it on our neighborhood Facebook page.
Sorry?
Shout out to Kono.
if anybody sent it from the Constant Contact email, it will not work. The Constant Contact does the stupid link, which is why you got a second email from me that says, here's the link on our Facebook, here's the link on our Twitter, here's our link on our LinkedIn, here's the link directly, here's the first intro. Because if you forwarded your Constant Contact email, we found an error as soon as we sent it.
If you
Sorry.
forward it, if you've already completed it, it will not let you recomplete it again, so if you forward it, no one else can.
That happened when I said, I already did it. Well, I didn't do it, I'm trying to do it.
So if we,
It's already been done.
Yeah.
so the constant contact is the one that came from PPACG?
Yeah, so if you got one, and it may have been labeled as from me, but if it didn't say, here's the LinkedIn link, here's the Twitter link, here's the Facebook link, here's the survey link, don't use it.
What I'm hoping, Jessica, what you'll get from our area, I wish you would've got a lot more from Woodland Park. The Woodland Park community page is Cripple Creek, Teller, all of the other different counties.
And I am checking by zip code, so
That's what I'm hoping for all those other
give me
people
some more.
to get involved.
Well, it was a good plan to try to set time for each of the, and we'll keep working at it.
You were doing good till
I know it.
started talking.
Till I started talking?
CDOT.
Oh, CDOT, well,
CDOT was
we'll.
the one that took the,
I
no, it
know
was
it.
good, but I mean,
Okay.
that's when we went off track.
Real quickly, let me member announcements, very quickly, and then I'll tell you what that over-the-horizon thing means.
Isn't there a joint land use study public meeting tomorrow night?
There is, thank you very much,
Yeah.
Kevin.
What time, where?
There should have been flyers for that right up front.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's 5 to 7 at Library 21C tomorrow night. We'd love for all of your communities to be there, although the dominant impact is for the U.S. Air Force Academy area. There will be later ones on Trevor, Peterson, Cheyenne Mountain, Carson.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's it.
And according to what I saw in the Briargate edition, or whatever it was, Woodman edition, it is an open house.
Yes.
It is not a formal briefing presentation, so there's going to be displays and an opportunity to ask questions at each display. So 5 to 7 is the period, Library 21C, and I'm not sure where, but you'll find it somewhere in there.
Upstairs venue room, the big
Okay.
room at the library.
Oh, I know which one it is, okay. Items for the next CAC meeting, we already have Paul going to be doing his quarterly update on lift stations. or whatever else he's involved with.
Can we get a joint land use study update?
I'm sorry?
Can we get a joint land use study update?
Yes.
Just a progress report?
Anything else that people would like to see on that?
We're going to have more events discussion.
Yes, we'll block, and this time I will do my best to try to make sure that our presenters are front-loaded with how much time we're asking them to constrain themselves to.
Thank you for staying.
And if we don't have adequate information, that's not going to be our responsibility. Okay? Although I do want to point out, and Bethany made the point, the material that Matt had for us was in the electronic one, which I will confess I have to go back to that on my own from time to time, but that's not my I don't read it well on a screen. That's just me.
And I just asked Bethany that if there's new information that is not included in our packet, if she could let us know, just so that we know that we should go look at it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I assume the link in this and the paper
Yeah.
packets are identical.
And they're not.
So it's
Okay.
good to know that there's a change.
Okay, you've got the meeting schedule. Unless there is opposition, we are adjourned and, I'm sorry? Oh, well, sorry. Over the horizon is actually meant for that purpose. We'd like you to bring in things that you are seeing, developing, so that when we start talking about trying, I'm really kind of caught by the idea of bringing forward ideas to the board of things that they should be paying attention to, other than tips and long, detailed discussions about the legislative, although I think that's important stuff, but the legislative stuff, that there are other things in the area. The key to that is within the PPACG area of responsibility. I commented to Vince, he was talking about education stuff. I don't think PPACG has an oar in that water. I may be wrong, but I think the idea of the local school districts and how they handle things is their area, and that we may not want to deal with that. I'm sorry, Vince?
It's a great idea, though.
I'm sorry. Kevin? Okay. Okay, but that's, over the horizon is what I've put on there is not simply, hey, we're having the ice festival, or we had the ice festival, but kind of, we have something coming up, or we're seeing some developments in our area that we think that it would be of interest to this group to discuss. Okay? So that's what that's meant to deal with. Okay, we are adjourned. If you have comments about this format, other than the fact I couldn't keep to the schedule, please let me know.
I like the organization of all of them together for action.